Close your eyes for a moment. Go back not last year, not 5 years ago. Go back to when you were very young, before anyone told you what to do with your life, before the expectations, before the report cards, and the comparisons and the careful shaping of who you were supposed to become. Do you remember who you were then, what you loved, without being told to love it, what you chased just because it was wonderful? That person, the one before all of it, they are not gone. They have been buried slowly, carefully, by years of becoming what the world needed you to be. This audiobook is about finding them again, not going back, going forward, toward the life that was always meant to be yours. Chapter 1: The Original Self. Rainier was 8 years old when she decided she wanted to be an oceanographer. Not because anyone told her to, not because it was practical or prestigious or the kind of thing that made relatives nod with approval at family gatherings. She decided because she had seen a documentary about the deep ocean, the part where the cameras went down past the point where sunlight reached into the absolute dark. And the creatures living there were so extraordinary, so improbably beautiful that she had pressed her face against the television screen and felt something open inside her. And for 2 years, from 8 to 10, Rainier was an oceanographer in the way children are things before the world teaches them to be realistic. She checked out every book the school library had on marine biology. She drew detailed illustrations of bioluminescent creatures in the margins of her school notebooks. She asked her father questions he couldn't answer and took his inability to answer them as an invitation to find out herself. She was alive in a way that is very specific to childhood passions, completely, unself-consciously, without performance. Then slowly things shifted. Her school results were strong in mathematics and sciences, and teachers began steering her toward engineering. Her family, loving her and wanting security for her, encouraged medicine. The word oceanography was met with gentle deflection. A real career would be difficult to build in that, they said. Pakistan didn't have the infrastructure. She would have to go abroad. It was impractical. Rainier listened. She was a careful, attentive child who loved the people giving her this advice and trusted them. She didn't argue. She simply, gradually let the ocean recede. By the time she was 14, she had nearly forgotten it ever mattered. By 20, she was studying to become an engineer. By 26, she was a successful one. And she was fine. She was genuinely fine. She had a good income, a respected profession, colleagues she liked, work that was intellectually interesting enough to keep her engaged most days. But there were nights, the quiet kind, the kind that come after everyone has gone home and the house is still, when she would find herself watching nature documentaries, and something would stir, something old and precise, the feeling of a door she had walked past for 20 years, still there, still very slightly open. She never opened it. Not yet. Chapter 2: How the World Shapes Us. The shaping of a person is one of the quietest and most consequential processes in a human life. It happens without announcements, without dramatic moments. It happens in the accumulation of 1,000 small redirections, each of them individually reasonable, collectively forming a life that may or may not belong to the person living it. It begins early. Children are extraordinarily sensitive to the preferences of the adults they love. Long before they can articulate it, they understand which versions of themselves receive warmth and which receive concern or disapproval. They are not calculating. They are simply attuned, in the way that all social creatures are attuned, to the emotional responses of those they depend on. And so they adjust. The child who loves to draw, but whose parents value academic achievement, quietly puts the sketchbook away, not because anyone told her to throw it away, but because she learned, without being told, that it did not occupy the same space of importance as homework. The child who loves music but is told to study medicine files it under hobby, a word that means something you do when everything important is finished, which means almost never. The child who is naturally introverted and reflective, raised in a culture that equates visibility with ambition, learns to perform extroversion and feel vaguely ashamed of needing solitude. None of the adults in these stories are villains. Most of them are loving. Most of them have the child's real interest at heart. They are passing on the accumulated wisdom of a world that has taught them what is practical and what is risky. They are trying to protect someone they love from difficulty. But practical wisdom, applied without nuance, can protect a person right out of their own life. Because here is what practical wisdom does not always account for. The human being is not only a survival unit. We are not just organisms trying to maximize security and minimize risk. We are also creatures of meaning, of calling, of the specific and irreplaceable pull towards certain things that, when followed, produce a quality of aliveness that cannot be manufactured by any amount of comfort or security. When we consistently choose the practical over the meaningful, we gain stability and lose something harder to name. We lose the thread, the original thread of who we were before the shaping began. And without it, we can build a very impressive life that feels, on the quiet nights, the still ones, like someone else's. Chapter 3: The Archaeology of the Self. Finding the original self is not a mystical process. It is an archaeological one. Archaeology involves digging carefully through accumulated layers to find what was there before. It requires patience. It requires a willingness to sit with fragments and treat them as evidence rather than nothing. It requires the understanding that what you are looking for has not been destroyed, it has only been covered. Rainier began her archaeology at 31, not because she had a dramatic breakdown or a sudden revelation, but because of a question her therapist asked her during a routine session. When did you last feel genuinely excited about something? Not satisfied, not proud. Genuinely excited, the kind of feeling you had as a child about something you discovered. Rainier thought about it for a long time, and then she said carefully, I watched a documentary about a research vessel in the Mariana Trench last month. I watched it 3 times. Her therapist said nothing, just waited. I used to want to be an oceanographer, Rainier said, and then, almost immediately, she laughed, the reflexive laugh of someone embarrassed by their own admission. Obviously, that didn't happen. Why obviously? Her therapist asked. It was the simplest question, and Rainier had no clean answer to it. The obviously had been in her mouth for 20 years, loaded and ready, never questioned. Obviously. Because practical, obviously because realistic, obviously because she was 31. And an engineer, and it was far too late. But was it? That was the question that began to unseal something. The archaeology of the self often begins with a question like this, not a decision, not an action, just a genuine, open question directed at the obviously we have never examined, at the that's just how it is we have been carrying since adolescence, at the door we have been walking past for years without ever asking what is behind it. The question doesn't require immediate action. It just requires honesty. What did you love before you were told what to love? What were you drawn to, not because it was useful or impressive or approved of, but because it was wonderful to you? What did you practice, alone without an audience, purely for the feeling of it? These answers are not random. They are data. They are the evidence of who you were before the shaping, and in them, with care and patience, you can find the thread that still connects you to yourself. Chapter 4: The Voices That Say It's Too Late. The moment you begin to reclaim the original self, the voices arrive. You know the voices. We have talked about them before in other contexts, but they appear again here, in their own specific configuration. It's too late. You are too old. The time for that was 20 years ago. You have responsibilities now. You have a career, commitments, a life already built. To change direction now would be to throw away everything you have worked for. To be irresponsible, to be naive, to be fundamentally a person who doesn't understand how the world works. These voices are not entirely wrong. There are real costs to change, real risks, real things that would need to be different. The voices are not lying when they enumerate the practical difficulties, but they are profoundly, selectively incomplete because they calculate only the cost of changing. They never calculate honestly, fully with the same rigor, the cost of not changing, the cost of another 10 years in the life that doesn't quite fit, the cost of the quiet nights, the cost of the documentary you watch 3 times because something in it reaches through 20 years of accumulated practicality and touches the person you were before, the cost of the door you keep walking past. Both choices have costs. The question is not which choice is free, none are. The question is which cost you are more willing to pay. And this is where most people stop, because the cost of not changing is familiar. It is the cost you already know how to carry. The cost of changing is unknown, which makes it feel larger than it may actually be. Here is what I can tell you about people who have made significant changes after the age of 30, 35, 40, even 50. The ones who regretted it most were not the ones who tried and found it harder than expected. The ones who carried the deepest regret were the ones who never tried, the ones who chose the known cost of the unchanged life and spent the rest of it wondering. Regret for what you did is workable. You have information, you have experience, you can adapt. Regret for what you didn't do is a closed room. There is nothing to work with, no data. Just the permanent question of what might have been. Choose the regret you can live with. Chapter 5. What Rania Did. Rania did not quit engineering. This is important to say clearly, because the story of reclaiming the original self is often told as a dramatic rupture, the resignation letter, the one-way ticket, the burning of ships, and for some people that is the right story, but for most people the reclamation is quieter, more gradual, more sustainable. Rania did something smaller and in its smallness more real. She registered for an online course in marine biology. At night, after work, for 1 hour. Before sleep, she did not tell many people about it. She did not build a narrative around it. She simply began, the way she had at 8 years old, without performance, without audience, simply because the subject made her feel something that her daily life had stopped making her feel. The first week of the course, she sent her therapist a single message: "I forgot that learning could feel like this." Over the following months, she began attending a conservation group that did coastal cleanups in Karachi. She connected with marine biologists, some academic, some NGOs, some in private environmental firms. She discovered that the field she had believed was unavailable to her was, in fact, available in forms she had never imagined. That environmental engineering, her professional expertise, intersected with marine conservation in ways that created a niche she was, perhaps uniquely, positioned to occupy. She was not starting over. She was integrating, taking what she had built over 15 years and connecting it to the thread she had abandoned at 10. This is what the reclamation of the original self often looks like in practice, not erasure of the practical life, not abandonment of the responsible choices, but a patient, deliberate reconnection, finding the bridge between who you became and who you We're and building something that contains both. It takes longer than the dramatic version. It is less cinematic, but it is real, and it holds. 3 years after that therapy session, Rainia was leading environmental impact assessments for a coastal development project, work that required every technical skill she had developed as an engineer applied to the ecosystem she had been drawn to at 8 years old. She had not become an oceanographer, she had become something better, an engineer who had not forgotten what she loved. The ocean was in the work, it had always been waiting. Chapter 6. The practice of remembering the original self does not announce itself dramatically once you have reconnected with it. It needs to be tended regularly, the way any living thing needs tending. The world does not stop shaping you after childhood. The pressures of adulthood, financial, social, professional, relational, continue to press on the authentic self. Throughout a life, the person you were at your most original is always under some degree of pressure from the practical demands of the world you live in. This is not a problem to be solved, it is a condition to be managed. The practice of remembering is not a once-and-done event. It is a habit, a recurring orientation toward the question, is this life mine? Is the person I am presenting to the world in my work, in my relationships, in the choices I make recognizable as the person I actually am? Not in every detail, not in every moment. Life requires compromise and accommodation and the doing of things that are not soul-stirring. This is normal. This is being a functioning adult in a complex world. But in the overall shape of a life, in the direction it is moving, in the things it is building, in the way a person feels when they are at their most honest and alone, the original self should be present, should be recognizable. When it is not, when the quiet nights bring that particular quality of distance from yourself, when you find yourself watching something 3 times because it reaches something your daily life cannot reach, that is not a sign of failure. It is a compass. Reading. It is the original self indicating the direction of true north. You do not have to overhaul everything in response. You just have to take one step. One small, real, impractical step toward the thing that makes you feel most fully yourself. One course registered for, one group joined, one conversation had with someone doing the work you always wanted to do, one sketchbook bought, one instrument picked up, one documentary watched, not for entertainment, but as evidence of what still lives in you. The original self is resilient. It has survived years of being shaped and redirected and practically advised away from itself. It is still there. It is always still there. You just have to turn toward it. And keep turning. Every day a little more. Epilogue. The person you were before the world told you who to be is not a child's fantasy. They are not naive. They are not impractical. They are the most accurate version of you that has ever existed, the one who knew, without being told, what they were drawn to, what lit them up, what they would do with a free afternoon and no one watching. The world needed you to become practical, responsible, shaped into something that could function in the systems that exist, and you did that. You have done it well. But you were not only made to function. You were made to be fully, specifically, irreplaceably yourself. And that self, the one who pressed their face against the television screen at 8 years old and felt something open, is still waiting. They have been patient. Turn toward them tonight. Begin with one question. What did I love before I was told what to love? The answer is already in you. It has never left.